Yes.
When we get to that slide.
What you got in that bag of yours?
We're combining. it.
Right.
One-
No, I.
So,
There we go. You know what I am.
Got it.
So I'll share it here, so it's gonna be on this monitor, you can click, it's clickers worth, say next.
How's school?
Bring home those and break the free.
But last day is the
How many months?
and nice.
This is funny.
Then they're not coming. And then,
Sure.
oh, we're looking here.
Yeah.
Oh, every day is still.
Okay.
You know what?
There's no- only me.
Because we don't make that.
You know, Brett doesn't show.
All the way, Chris.
Not that I won't, I mean,
You can't.
they're just giving me a hard time.
It's wrong.
Just field trip back. Right?
Yeah, that water. Oh, really? Excited. Everyone have a nice. It's gonna say Halloween, I'm still on Halloween. Holiday. Holiday. I meant Thanksgiving. That's how far away I am, where I am. Kathy, I'm ready when you are. Oh,
Yeah.
You just called.
Kathy Keel. You want to say?
So.
Yeah.
So she's okay, it was dramatic, but it's not.
Okay, yeah.
Yeah. She's like, no, yeah.
We'll call to order the curriculum committee meeting.
So you can just, call on TJ for the program of studies and, yeah.
All right, so this evening we have several presentations. TJ, you're gonna start us off with your program of studies.
Awesome, thanks.
Thank you very much.
So this is the high school show for first,
Yay.
first meeting of the evening. I wanted to just thank the board for having us here, and Melanie is going to be presenting with me. We're going to combine items 1 and 2 if that's okay, because the section item around conceptual astronomy is directly related to the program of studies. Melanie does a lot of work with the coordinators in prepping not only the presentation, but the program of studies, which will be posted online in the very near future. And once we get back from the winter break, we start right into scheduling for everyone except the seniors. So this is certainly very timely. Gail, I heard, is not feeling well, but her work on this is always greatly appreciated as well. If you've been part of this over the years, it's a little smaller every year because we have such a specific curriculum revision cycle. So years ago, we were making changes in all different content areas and departments. That's changed because now we have a really specific plan. So Melanie's going to start. I have a little part, and then we'll answer any questions either as we go or at the end. So whatever your preference. So Melanie, thank you.
Thank you. Hi, everyone. So I'm going to go over just some general overview of the changes for this year. As TJ said, they're very specific to the curricular cycle that you will also hear a little bit about for the science course and the art department as well. So just some general overviews have to do with graduation requirements. So both independent project and personal finance are required courses. They're given on a pass-fail basis as part of our graduation requirement for profile graduate. These courses before this proposal were sort of in our program of studies in general and offered to grades 9 through 12. However, just in offering these courses over the last few years and seeing what groups of students take these courses, it really is curriculum that's geared towards the upper level student, more just developmentally appropriate. We talk about personal finance and life after high school and planning, and like a freshman wouldn't benefit from that as much as a junior or senior. So we're going to continue to offer the courses same as they always have been, just with more specificity around the grade levels that they're being offered to. In the art department, so they are in their curriculum cycle right now. So they have a robust set of changes. So I'm not going to go through and literally read this to you, but they took sort of like a top-down approach and holistically looked at what does the art department believe philosophically around their department overview. So they started just by reworking what their the overview is for their department. So basically inside here, when you go to the landing page on the website and you click on each specific department, it gives you a department overview. Like this is math department, this is the science department. So the text on this slide and the next slide would go directly onto the website and would give people an overview for what the department philosophy is, where they focus, etc. Then if you continue, they have made some course-specific changes. So the first set of changes has to do with revising or updating the course name. So these are classes that are still going to be offered. They're just going to be offered with a new title, mainly just to keep up with like industry standards, more to keep up with what art schools are used to seeing, things along those nature. So we offered ceramics before, or clay before, it's now going to be called ceramics. We had a drawing in a drawing studio. We just refined that to say drawing studio 1 and drawing studio 2 to naturally, as it reads on a transcript, that it shows that it's like a sequence of courses. And then short films is being updated to movie making. So you may remember a couple of years ago that we had some specific designations for certain courses. So some courses fall under the category of STEM and some courses fall under the category of humanities. And there's set parameters around what makes a STEM class and what makes a humanities class, mainly with the content that is actually being taught. In AP Studio Art Drawing, there was some curriculum changes directly from AP. So that isn't a course that we offer the course. It's not organically ours where we write the curriculum like some of the other classes. So because of that curriculum change, it no longer meets our humanities designation. Course is still going to be offered as it always had. It just wouldn't fall under the umbrella of humanities. It would still count as an art credit. And then similarly, through some of the revision in the curriculum, the photography courses, so the darkroom to digital and commercial could be taken in either order. And you'll see at the end of your presentation, there's an overview of the course description for both of those classes. But because of the curriculum changes that have been made, these two courses can now be offered with STEM designation. And that wasn't what was the case before. So we offered these classes before, but they were just for general art credit. Now it falls under that STEM umbrella, mainly due to the technology that's included in those courses.
So I'm gonna jump in. I would say the most significant changes we're making, if some of you have been a part of the board for a few years, 3 years ago, we presented a plan, a 3-year plan to remove level 3 courses in mathematics in a very strategic and designated way, where we reduced level 3 2 years ago in algebra 1. This year reduced level 3 in geometry. This is the natural progression of our plan. Next year we will be removing the algebra 2 level 3 courses from the program of studies, which I'm really excited about. You know, I think a really effective 3-year plan moving forward. In place of that algebra 2 level 3, we're actually going to have 3 algebra 2 offerings. You could see listed on the screen, and algebra 2 A, B, and C. Each of those courses are 1 trimester half credit courses. So the expectation is that our students will take any 2 of them in order. For some students who may have struggled in algebra 1 and or geometry, they will start with algebra 2A and then transition into algebra 2B, earning 1 full credit, still having the SAT prep that's necessary. That typically would be a student who is not on the pre-calculus track. What's exciting about this as well is, let's say that student really does well and really likes algebra 2, which does happen. It doesn't shut the door on algebra 2C, so they could actually earn another half credit, either if it fits in their schedule at the end of their junior year, but if we get requests for the upcoming year, we can offer an algebra 2C section at the beginning of senior year as well. For some of our students who have excelled in math and are on the pre-calculus track, they'll actually start in algebra 2B. So they'll skip that A course and then they'll be expected to take algebra 2C. What I like a lot about this, a lot of different things, is those courses are separate courses. So let's say there's 18 kids in algebra 2A. At the end of trimester 1, when they get ready to transition to algebra 2B, they'll go to all different sections. It won't be one group of kids. Similarly, the 2B students will also move around and go to different sections. We will offer co-teaching in some of the sections, as we're doing right now in our level 2 algebra 1 classes and geometry level 2 classes, just to make sure students have the supports that are necessary. I'm really excited about this plan. I think, again, at the foundational level, it's really good for kids and it offers a lot of options. And I want to highlight the important part of, it doesn't shut any students out. for that student who really has a great experience, that C course is open. I would anticipate the fewest number of sections will be 2A. I think we'll see the majority of sections in 2B and 2C. We'll plan the staffing accordingly after we go through the initial course requests that happen in January. But we'll also look at final grades in June because that's one of the prerequisites that will determine the placement we suggest for students, keeping in mind, as you know, students can override, but we'll have some really important conversations with parents and with students over the next month or two, and then really look at final grades again to see if anything needs to be adjusted.
Couple questions. First of all, that sounds wonderful as a plan. I know that we sometimes, for college-bound students, we provide notes with the transcript that explain like our, 4-point scale or whatever. Would it also explain this so that students who started B and go to C or started A and do all three are not somehow kind of disadvantaged in their college application because someone sees Algebra 2C and thinks that they were in the Algebra 3 class?
That's a good question. So we looked at a few Connecticut, not area schools. They have breakdowns similar to this. We don't see this having a negative impact. We will, always refer to our program of studies where the breakdown is very specific. I do think it's important to note that the AB course it's a true Algebra 2 course. It's just for the student who doesn't have plans to go into pre-calculus. If you're planning pre-calc, you absolutely have to take Algebra 2C. That's a really important piece. And keeping in mind, we'll also have Algebra 2 honors available as well. So there'll be a group of students who this won't really pertain to at all, and they'll take that. So I'll be curious to see where the breakdown comes with our students when we do course requests, and final grades are really important. And we don't see this as having any negative impact, as a lot of schools do that. And, the weight and GPA issues, everyone calculates differently. So colleges just take the course level as well as the grade. They enter that into their own formula and then, get the weighted GPA they're looking at because high schools do it so differently.
Another question, this kind of harkens back for me to, I think it was a year ago, but it might have been 2 years ago. My understanding, as I recall, is that we used to have a track where students who were advanced in math coming up from middle school were able to take like honors biology or something like that. And then that was changed in order to allow students who weren't as, on top of math as others could still benefit by taking advanced biology, but not have to take advanced algebra first or something. Is that you?
I'm not sure what the question is.
Well, you just kind of go over that again because
So our students, when they come from Polson or, from any 8th grade school, they get recommended and also have some choice. We have an override process. So some students who are taking algebra, for example, in 8th grade will not take our algebra if they're successful and go right into geometry. Occasionally, we have students who are so far advanced, they jump into Algebra 2. We've had kids walk over from Polson at times just because, not only convenience, which works perfectly because of the proximity of the schools, but they're so advanced, they can move up into the higher level courses. Science, students can take bio honors or bio. Those are two options and both have some different course expectations. So a student could take, for example, geometry honors freshman year based on their success with algebra. But if they're not, let's say, totally into science and not as interested, they don't have to take bio honors. There is a lot of choice and flexibility, which helps. So what's also nice is students who, let's say, take our Algebra 1 course freshman year and do really well and find that they maybe really love math, they could earn or override into geometry honors. They're not on a track over their high school years. It's based on their schedule. And some students, want to take all of our highest level courses. Some pick and choose based on their interest, motivation, schedule, and everything else associated with it. So there's not this has to be that. It's a lot of flexibility. And for the students who don't meet our prerequisites, we have an override process that we're very generous in approving. We really have only said no to an override if a student has overridden into a math course, for example, and was unsuccessful. And then the next year they override again, that's a conversation and usually a denial, but without those parameters, I just sign my initials and we move them into those higher level courses. So there is a lot of flexibility, which is one of the many nice things about the trimester schedule and the depth of our program of studies.
Thank you.
I was gonna add just one thing, just to, I think, something too worth clarifying is biology and biology honors does not have a math prerequisite the way I think what you might have been trying to touch upon is like physics or chemistry, have some prerequisites that are math specific, mainly because of the math in those courses.
Yeah.
So
I
just to
understand.
clarify.
I think that there was an issue with scheduling, like you could only take honors bio if you were in an advanced and something like that.
I think Melanie's point's probably, it's recommended, for example, if you're in honors chemistry,
Mhm.
you should be in algebra 2 or already have taken algebra.
Yeah,
Should,
because that's
not,
math.
Yeah.
not must, but we've noticed, level 2 chemistry is probably a better choice or waiting. You can take another science course, get the algebra 2 content you need, and then jump in the chem honors course. So the order in science isn't as rigid as like algebra 1, geometry, algebra 2, and then branches off. So that is probably what you're referring to. We'll talk to students who want to take, for example, geometry and an honors level chem. That's challenging because the math, they're not there with the math. We're hoping for students to be at least concurrent in the courses. Preferably, they have algebra 2 already finished before they jump into that high level chemistry course.
Thank you.
Yes. You had your hand
Sorry,
up.
I'm Jessica.
Hi, Jessica.
So I'm still.
Don't be sorry,
I'm still
jump right
working
in.
some of this. So this is a basic question, but are students required to take math all 3 trimesters? So I guess if a student takes A and B, then they're taking a math elective in the 3rd trimester?
So great question.
Or-
So our trimester schedule, I'm not sure how much you know about it. Each trimester is a half a credit, which means it's actually equal to a half year of content, even though it's only a third of the year. So with some of our courses like Algebra 2, for example, there are only 2 trimester courses. So there is a trimester where they don't have math. And that's been historic, and the schedule has to be designed very strategically where there's certain offerings trimester 1 and 2 of the same course, some offerings of trimester 2 and 3, and some 1 and 3 with a gap. When I was hired 13 years ago, we did a study and hired an expert and saw no negative impact. And actually the students who had the gap had higher averages, which was interesting. But those gaps allow students to take additional courses. And I would share that it's one of the major reasons our students graduated with just over 29 credits as an average, when you only need 25 to graduate from Connecticut schools, which is pretty exciting. So they can still have a lunch period and add a lot of flexibility. Some of our math courses are 3 trimesters, like Algebra 1, foundational course, that content's so important. The math department has confirmed that's a 3 trimester course. Students enrolled and who are successful in that course get 1.5 math credits, not 1, because it meets the whole year and it's equivalent to that much time. So trimester schedule is unique. Not many schools run it. It's outstanding. It offers a lot of opportunity for kids. And, if a student is struggling and has a bad start, they could drop sometimes. We have certain parameters around when you can add and drop. They could restart a course, as an example, or move to a lower level. Today, I had a student come in and actually request to move up a level. So that is exciting and offers a ton of flexibility. The trimester just began. So the school counseling office, is someplace I stay out of right now for the first few days because all the changes come in. But again, some courses, like some of our advanced courses, are 3 trimesters, but we also offer a lot of 1 trimester courses that fit in some of those gaps, which really help students get the courses they're interested in.
The class periods are 60 minutes each, so it helps in that it's a little bit longer time to less transitions, and then also math teachers love it because they have the students, 5 days a week versus say a block scheduling where they might have the students every other day and that's problematic that way. So that's a really nice function of it too. I think the other piece too, you covered it, but just to kind of reiterate, level 3 that they're eliminating was a course that really didn't lead students anywhere. And so the high school came up with supports for students to access that level 2 curriculum and be in both of those classes. So it's really been a success. We've already done this in Algebra 1 and geometry. So I think that the push higher expectations and pushing students with supports, the appropriate supports to be able to succeed has been great. We've seen great success out of that.
Again, as I said, this is going into year 3 of our plan, so we're excited about that.
And we've had increased testing results as well, achievement.
Yes.
So I'm gonna jump into our next change, which is in the science department, and this is where when TJ said we're gonna merge like agenda items 1 and 2, this is that merge that he was talking about. I have traditionally offered a course called Earth Science. Students would joke, and Paul Mesick is our department chair, and they would say to him, Mr. Mesick, it's Earth Science, but we do a lot more space than we do on Earth. Like we don't really get to Earth, we're always in space. And so it was like this funny joke about it. But the reality is when they were going through and doing the curriculum, there is a lot more of a focus on space of Earth, studying the Earth, but from the study of space. So they decided to rename the course just to mainly advertise what the concepts actually are. So what you will see in your agenda 2 is the unit overview. So there's 2 units that are in this course. So this is a 1 trimester, to your point, Jessica, we're going to talk about the benefits of having these 1 trimester electives. So this is a 1 trimester elective based course that students can take in science if the subject matter speaks to them. Like if they are intrigued by this and they're like, I want to take this as an elective outside of the traditional biology, chemistry, physics sequence. So the first unit is about 6.5 weeks. The second unit is about this. So they're about evenly timed in terms of the curriculum. The first unit starts with star evolution, and it goes all the way through basically the way of the stars, what produces elements that stars make, etc. And then they go in from learning about stars to learning more about the sun. They study the sun's lifespan, and they also use some math and some computational representations to predict motion of orbits and things along those lines. So it really is an astronomy course way more than it is an earth science course. The conceptual component of it is because it's like the foundation. This is like dipping your toe in. Kids might be interested in this subject matter and might want to take some further courses down the road. But this is really an introductory course. Kids can take a class like this at any time. So let's say they are taking a 2 trimester biology course and they want a 3rd trimester of science, they can plug it in with an astronomy course. And to similarly go along the same lines of what we were just talking about, just about offering more options to kids, the conceptual astronomy will now be part of a 3-part series. So we have conceptual astronomy, chemistry, and physics, all 1 trimester courses, all similarly in that 2, maybe 3 units of study. So thinking about it as an introductory course, all 1 trimester. Students can take these at any time. What we tend to say is we see students that might take a conceptual chemistry the year before they're actually going to take chemistry. So it's just a little bit of an introduction. They might take conceptual chemistry, let's say freshman year, simultaneously with their biology course, because they know that in sophomore year, they're going to actually take the full year of chemistry course or chemistry honors. Same thing for physics. Students often will take conceptual physics simultaneously when they're taking chemistry because they know they're going to go into their physics course in their next year.
And to Seth, to your point, just to jump in for 1 second, at freshman orientation, a lot of parents sometimes get nervous. The honors bio kids get a credit and a half. Bio is only 2 trimesters. We talk about these selections. So if your student is scheduled for bio, they could take any one of these choices. And especially the science department pushes the conceptual chemistry. Just chemistry proves to be a pretty challenging course. And then after, freshmen are in the building, our school counselors meet individually, which is amazing, with every single freshman through junior before they enter their course selection. So they'll have these conversations. So Jessica, if a student was a half a credit short in science, maybe you should take conceptual physics, get that half a credit, but the counselors have moved into that, literally a meeting with every single student except the seniors, which has proven to be quite effective to ensuring kids have what they need for not only their credit requirements, but the STEM and humanities.
And there's no prerequisite to take one versus the other. So you really can pick and choose. So if you didn't want to take conceptual astronomy because you're like, that doesn't really interest me, but I do want to take conceptual chem, they're not in a hierarchy. Those are just listed alphabetical. So I don't want you to believe that you have to go from one to the other. You could take any, really, anytime.
I have a question.
Yeah.
So in the physics and the chemistry, is it just like an introduction to that?
Yeah.
To what?
Think of it truly as foundational, an introduction. It also offers some of the, so like in the chemistry and the physics, there's a lot of math in chemistry and physics. So they have the time in that conceptual class, maybe to go over some of the foundational like math stuff that you're gonna need prior to getting into an actual full year of chemistry or full year of physics. But yeah, they're definitely foundational at their core. But it's nice for kids. Maybe there are some students that, for whether they're scheduled the way it fits or just where they feel like their science ability is, they may not want to jump into a full year of physics, but they're like, you know what? I want some exposure before I go to high school, before I go to college. That would be a good, like, take this, at least to have some examples, some exposure to physics before heading off to university. So it truly is elective based. We have kids that love science and want to take more science than they want to take a CTE class or that they want to take an art class. So the same way students might take 3, 4, 5 art classes, we have the same thing in the science department. They just love science and they just want something else to take. So that just gives them some choice.
Sometimes like for the kids who are either bound for like humanities or arts or something instead of a science track in college, but they need to fill some electives, it kind of beefs up their transcript a little bit to show that they challenged themselves and took another science course instead of, basket weaving or something.
That's a fun course. We don't offer that one. But yes, 100%.
Maybe next year.
Coming soon. But yes, to your point, Seth, that's right. Not every kid is going to be the science kid or the math kid or the art kid, but we try to play to the interests of all of our students and be able to offer enough that at least if they want to take something, they want to give it a chance. A 1 trimester, 60-day commitment, not huge, but maybe they might take that and be really successful and then say, I am going to take chemistry next year. I am going to take physics next year. So it builds their confidence up a little bit too. So an update in the world language department, and this is truly not our update. This is actually a UConn update, but we thought it was worth sharing. So UConn just changed what course it aligns to the AP French course. So we offer AP French 5 here. We're still offering AP French 5. But on the UConn transcript, their course number changed. So it's now going to align with Global Culture 1, which is just French 3250 from UConn. So that's just a UConn change. And that wraps up our presentation. So there's a bunch of slides at the end. Those are just the overview of the actual course description changes. That can be everything from like 1 sentence change, etc. In the art department, those were more significant changes because they're in their curriculum cycle. Everything else is very minimal in terms of the changes. Sometimes we notice a typo, like little things. But the art department is really where the more profound changes are just because they're in their curricular cycle.
Thank you.
Anyone have any other questions?
I just want to point out that there's just a consistent through line whenever there are conversations around change and what happens each year when you come present this each year. And it's always that you're consistently circling back to thinking about wording and about how important a title of a course, it makes words matter, like in a big way, and they really are intriguing in how you put them together, and you keep that in the forefront of all of your decision making. But there's always decision making, there's always rethinking and lifting the level, like outgrowing your best thinking each year. And I just wanted to say that it's not lost on me how in intentional you are as a team and as a, yeah, as a team, to really think about, again, always students first and how, what will be, interesting to them, but also what will make it, better off for them when they go off to college, and just to really boost them to be the very best, college candidate that they can be. So thank you for your hard work.
Thank you.
And just one last thing is, I also think it bears mentioning every time we can throw it in there that. If you look on the curriculum overview sheet for the conceptual astronomy. You'll notice that on the bottom of each unit, there's the profile of the graduate capacities that the course is intended to address. And that's just something we do in this district that is amazing, and it you know, it keeps our curricula aligned to our mission, our vision, and our profile of a graduate to make sure we really are tuning classwork and units to what we want our students to graduate with, which is, it's phenomenal. Thank you, guys.
You're welcome.
Thank you.
One thing I forgot to mention, and I would just be remiss if I didn't, because Paul Mezek did such phenomenal work on this curriculum revision. He was very thoughtful also in thinking about what students, where they left off in their space curriculum from Polson. So exactly where that curriculum leaves off is exactly where this course picks up. So just something worth noting, he was super mindful of that, went down there, visited Polson, like looked at where they left off. And so I forgot to mention, that was one of my highlights here, but I do want to mention that because I think that that also speaks to what you were saying, like just really, really with intention. Yeah. Yeah.
Thank you so much. Thanks.
Thanks, everyone.
Big switch in direction. So I told Melanie she could go home and have dinner because she's not part of this presentation, so.
I don't get to go to Costa Rica. I'm not.
You can chaperone.
Costa Rica. I don't know.
Yeah.
It's a little like Wheel of Fortune all of a sudden.
Yeah.
I'm like, please.
So I gauge a
Next
teacher,
year.
Mrs. Bracco is hoping this trip gets approved. She said, you know, are you gonna be at the board meeting? I'm not available, so I'll take care of it. So not my trip, but you could feel free to go home and have a great night.
Thank you.
So, you know, if you've been around a while, we go on some cool trails.
Yeah.
Like, really cool. Last year, we went to the Galapagos Islands. We have a trip that's filling right now, going to Bermuda. That's with a research facility. They're gonna be diving and doing research with, you know, with some scientists, which is absolutely amazing. This is a proposal for a trip to Costa Rica for the spring break, so they don't miss maybe a half a day of school, but they'll go on the April break in 2027. And we're asking for consideration for approval, because if we have kids sign up in December, there's a $200 decrease in the overall cost. These trips are not
So
cheap.
not this spring break.
Next spring break. So what you probably will notice is there's a little competition on some of the breaks for lots of different trips, and we go all over the place, which is pretty cool and really unique. Some are, you know, really historic and, you know, site-based. Some are really scientific. This is a pretty cool trip. And Mrs. Bracco is super excited to offer. So I'll go through, you can ask some questions as we go. What the tour company we'll be using is called EF Educational Tours. They have an incredible history. You can see just very quickly why a lot of schools select them, you know, a high level of percentages of people who say the tour expanded their knowledge, that the tour helped them grow as a person, felt inspired by the tour. These are really neat experiences, and, you know, trying to run one of these on your own, just plan everything, it's just not worth it. When you hire a company, they are so well versed in the different experiences and very, very supportive. So we're looking at, you know, you could see a touch of the tropics and get an idea of some of the places we're going. But if you do look in the little bulleted section on the left, they're still in the process of customizing. Like, the days aren't going to change, but there are some different options. Some of them are really exciting. We're requested travel dates are April 9th through 17th of 2027. It could be the 8th through the 18th. You know, those are kind of up in the air, but that's a pretty extended trip. And if you look at a sample of what we're looking at, you know, from day one, flying to Costa Rica is not like a quick ride to, you know, Tampa or something. That's pretty significant. And you could see some of the things they're looking at, from touring a coffee farm, taking a hike, kayaking, visiting hot springs, travel to all different areas, zip lining, I'll talk about in a moment. You could see on day 6, you know, a ride in an aerial tram, you know, visiting a butterfly sanctuary, which is interesting. Then you go on the crocodile safaris tour. So, you know, kind of different, and like real crocodiles, and then a visit to a national park, and then, you know, traveling and departing home, like a really amazing trip. The cost is expensive, and I'll get to that, but that's a 9-day trip, which is pretty significant. Some of the highlights are on the left, and some of those could change. We're looking at the customizations on the right, like the kayaking trip is a definite. The hot springs we're planning as well, the hike, zip lining, like we contact our insurance company and we use Kerma, and they actually offer international insurance that they actually pay the cost if the school uses the insurance, which is incredible. We just learned about this. They were a little concerned about zip lining, but was interesting, they weren't concerned about the crocodile safari boat cruise. And I said that, so it's like going on a river with crocodiles is totally appropriate. So if we do stick with zip lining, our students might get charged a little more for insurance. And I did talk to Mrs. Bracco and said, you know, if the insurance company is not interested, that it's probably for a reason. So that's a maybe. We do have the tour guide willing to talk to Wendy's, our contact at Kerma, just to talk through it to see if there's something we can do, because it's supposed to be an incredible experience, ziplining through, you know, the rainforest. But again, we want to make sure it's safe. There's a 200-pound limit I've read about, so that would limit some of us. We're out immediately, but we'll look into that more. But the other pieces, like the crocodile safari boat cruise, and kind of cool being on the beach with monkeys and sloths all over the trees, like talk about a really unique experience. They are looking at, you know, the ecological night tour, which could be pretty exciting in the rainforest. Coffee and chocolate making tour, I'm totally in for that one. Whitewater rafting, again, that's totally appropriate and approved by our insurance company. And then a walk on hanging bridges in the rainforest. So really unique experience. You know, we had one trip to Costa Rica years ago when COVID shut down a lot of the world. We had a group of students who paid for a great European trip that was closed down. So the option was Costa Rica. You know, everyone except the chaperone had an incredible trip. Martin Glasser went and he said, I will never go below the equator again. You know, he's like, that's not his thing, but a really good experience for students.
All about Europe.
Yes, all about Europe. So price estimate, you know, again, pretty high. And looking at if there's 30 or more paying travelers, you can see the range between 39 and 4,100. I would estimate we'd probably be into 20 to 29. That's typically what fills, and you'd be pretty surprised how quickly these trips fill. Like, it's like, we're looking at, if we have approval, to have a December 17th parent meeting, just informational. And there's a lot of students who are going to express interest because the chaperones reach out to Dr. Cook in advance and say, could we start advertising this, informing everyone that this needs Board of Ed approval, just to get a little energy around it. You know, 10 to 19 would be a small number, but that could be the case as well. And then, you know, if you look at what's included, you get a lot from a full-time tour director. All transportation is included. Breakfast, lunch, and dinner daily is significant. You know, that some of our trips, there's maybe just lunch, and that puts a tax on the overnight or the total cost. Hotels, expert-led sightseeing and guided tours. Like, we don't go anywhere on these trips without some experts taking us along the way. All tickets to all the parks are included. You know, students could apply for academic credit if they were interested. I haven't had our students ever do so, but that's an option. Travel support, emergency services, and then if you look on the right-hand side, some of the things that the students and the chaperones would be responsible for, obviously passports or visas. If there's baggage fees, usually our students are pretty efficient at stuffing a lot of things in that one bag that fits in, that device in the airport. Tips and transportation, those are usually collected in advance and given out at the end of the trip. So, again, a lot of details, really positive. One thing I will say I get asked is there support for students who can't afford this? Typically, if it's not a trip that's connected to our curriculum, we don't offer supports because, if we had 10 kids who needed support, we don't have a student activity fund that could support this. What is interesting is this company gives each student like an individual website where they can reach out to family members, friends, and do their own fundraising that's specific to lowering the cost of the trip. They also can be put on payment plans. So there's certain amounts of monies that are due at different times. Keeping in mind, this is 2027. So there's a significant amount of time. And we usually, again, have a lot of students who sign up and attend these trips, even though the cost, when you look at overall, it seems high, but we're talking a 9-day trip, with everything that's included, it's pretty significant. We have the option to offer students the travel insurance as well with global protection, from what's recommended to an extra $190 all the way up to like the super plan that's $500. We are actually going to be looking at this again. As I mentioned, Kerma offers international travel insurance. They communicated with me the other day over the phone that this trip would qualify. They won't give the specific details of the full coverage, which again would be free outside the zip lining, as long as we have the full itinerary and the student list generated. So we gave them a sample itinerary, and Colleen from Kerma said, absolutely, this would be covered, but they need the full to go through the process. So some of these costs might not even exist, which would be pretty exciting. I'm glad we learned about that international travel. EF is well-known worldwide. People use them for all international travel. We've had really good experiences with them. Great with communication. They respond instantly, even though it's a worldwide company. We've never had an issue, very, like I mentioned, the person we're working with, she was ready to get on the phone with Kerma to talk about the zip line and how safe it is and the issues they may have to see if we can work it out. And if you look at just the Navy dots all around the world, that's where all the EF offices actually are. So this isn't a company that we're looking at to try out for the first time. We usually use a certain company out of Florida for the national, United States type travel, but international, we use a company and they've been really successful with us. As I mentioned, students have an option for a personalized fundraising page, and they have a lot of time to raise funds for this. And they could even apply for a global citizenship scholarship, which is really, really positive. They can get, $1,000 off their trip, and we would encourage students. The EF, if I'm not mistaken, has $100,000 in a pool that they use to support students who apply over the course of every year. So we would tell students, hey, this is an option as well, and could be a really positive experience. And this was, again, what I mentioned, a student can earn EF or Nobel Prize, certificate and or high school credit, which I'm not sure we would give high school credit for this, but they could apply at no additional cost. They might be able to earn 3 college credits, for just a $550, similar to our UConn courses. You pay a lot less for a high school UConn course, which is truly a UConn course, than you do if your student's enrolled at UConn. So we think a really great opportunity. This is a little different than some of the typical trips we run to Europe. So we think it might tap into a different level of interest for some students who may not, want to go to England or Paris, or we're planning a Switzerland trip coming up as well. So you'll hear about that. A lot of cool things going on. So this is what we're hoping for. And again, I do think the option for students to have their own fundraising is really helpful. I'm always surprised at how quickly these trips. When my kids went to Daniel Hand, I was hoping like, please don't want to go. Please don't, you know, especially both of you at the same time, because, you know, it could be pretty costly. So I'm happy to answer any questions that you may have. Again, looking at that April vacation, you know, one of the challenges, student athletes who play a spring sport, I mean, this really isn't an option for you, but that's okay as well, because you're committed to that spring sport.
So the scientific or the academic value of this one is more on the science side, biodiversity, flora, fauna.
Absolutely, it aligns with numerous science courses, which is why our bio AP bio teacher is taking the lead on this, similarly to the Bermuda trip. Where, you know, all scientific with, you know, we go from bio level classes all the way up to the most advanced science courses you can offer, including a biotech course, which is really unique, which will hopefully tap into some of the research side. I think this is a course that a lot of kids who are really interested in science and going on a pretty cool field trip and who don't want to go like sightseeing and learning history. I think this could be one that would be really interested, and we've been advertising this through our science classes, you know, because everyone's in a science class and promoting it. I'd be surprised if we didn't have a pretty high number of parents curious about hearing more about it.
And this is open to all students, 9 to
All
12?
students, yes. Great question. We don't run too many, unless it's curricular based trips, if any, that are really isolated to a certain group of students. You know, like a band trip, for example, you have to be in the band or in the orchestra, for example, but these trips are open to all students and all grades, which is really nice. And we take one chaperone for every 10 students. So if we get 30, we take 3 people. And that the chaperones don't have to pay. That cost is part of the process. Sounds like a free trip, but you have a major responsibility. Like, we always tell the chaperones, bring the same 10 kids back. Like that's really important, and they do an incredible job. And the chaperones really, you know, they don't have to do this, you know, like Mrs. Bracco is willing to give up her April vacation, you know, to take 20 or 30 students for an incredible experience. And that's, I think, pretty cool, you know, when you look at it just that way.
So the Bermuda trip is the one this year, or are there other trips going on this year?
Yes, there's always something
Always
going,
something.
yeah.
I was trying to think what we.
Yeah, there's one other one competing this spring as well. I'm not sure which one it
Germany,
is.
are we going to Germany?
This summer, we're doing the other half of our exchange program where the girls just left pretty recently and went back to Freiburg. Now we have a whole group going for several weeks. That's a little different than a field trip because we have our chaperones who go, but then you hand the students off and say, we'll be available, we'll meet for dinner occasionally, but they get to live with the host families for several weeks, which is really cool. Like that's been a highlight that I want to, you know, compliment Martin Glasser and my administrative assistant, Carla Marino, for just coming up with that idea. It's been a great success. We're already planning for next year or 2 years. We'll do every 2 years.
Are the chaperones always teachers or are they sometimes parents?
Never parents
Board of
unless
Ed.
they work there. Board of Ed, maybe. There are some cases where a staff member might go, not a teacher. It's typically a teacher. You know, if we have a student who has specific needs, medical needs or any, there might have to be additional staff, and that's why we need the list in advance. You know, some of the tricky pieces sometimes, you know, people take medications for all different reasons, you know, just showing up in another country with a backpack of medication is not always advisable, so we have to make sure we follow all the rules, because our chaperones, who not only are trained, but typically have the certifications we have as administrators, they're the ones who have to manage the medications with students. But again, like going to Ohio is different than going to, you know, somewhere outside of the US.
Is that a district thing? Because I know in other districts, parents go. So is that a Madison?
I don't know. We've never had a challenge not getting chaperones. Like, we usually have a list, like, I'm next, I want to go next. So I do think, you know, foundationally, best for students. I'm not sure a lot of kids want mom or dad to go, even if they won't say it. So that,
Maybe,
I
I mean,
think,
I know,
I think lots of times mom and dad might wanna,
Yeah,
might
lots of
think their
parents
kid wants them
sometimes
to go,
teachers.
but I'm
Yeah.
pretty sure
Yeah.
that. That's a challenge. Now, we do have staff that have kids. I mean,
yeah,
that's probably different, but we've never had a shortage of chaperones. So much so, if one bows out for whatever reason, the lead trip chaperone will send an email and it's like instant, all right, I'm in, I'll go. Even when we send the informational stuff, I have like 5 people email, hey, I wanna go. I'm like, I don't make the selections. I make a lot of decisions, not that one. They usually go with the chaperones. We try and balance the male and female, just, you know, with hotel rooms, bathrooms and everything that comes with that. That works out really well. Yeah, and again, I don't think it's a hard and fast, I don't think we have it written anywhere that parents don't, but we've never had the need. I would, you know, if it came to me, I would say no, we'd rather have our faculty there, because they are responsible for all of the kids. I think as a parent, it'd be hard sometimes if it got into a stressful situation, you know, without even knowing, you worry about your kid first. And I do think that's just human nature.
I like the idea of that crocodile and piranha safari.
Nice. We're gonna see butterflies that jump on a boat with crocodiles. It's like
For one.
the two different ends, and I'm curious if the zip line goes over the river with a crocodile, so, you know, maybe that's why it's not advisable.
I shouldn't, that's the.
Yeah, I can't go on a zip line either, I'm out.
Well, thank you very much. Thanks for your time and,
You bet, thank you.
yeah.
Just to shock.
And we appreciate like the ongoing support, we go on really exciting trips and the kids will tell you some of the most memorable experiences they've had around these trips, which is really exciting. And the teachers deserve a lot of credit. They do a great job, not only keeping our students safe, but giving them really incredible experiences. You know, a lot of our students travel a lot. Many don't go on a trip like this. This is a unique one, and I'm glad we're doing a few more like this. Like that Bermuda trip will be really unique.
One of my daughters went on a Spain trip one summer. It was amazing, and you know, the kids on the trip, the students on the trip tend to make friends with, you know, kids that they wouldn't ordinarily be hanging out with at school, and then that carries through to the next year, and you know, it's great.
I know the Galapagos one was great, my granddaughter.
Yeah. That was quite a trip.
Oh, yeah, she loved it.
Yeah.
A lot
Really.
of turtles. Crocodiles, turtles.
Yeah.
Well, if there are no further questions, we can adjourn.
All right, thank you all for your time and
Thanks so much.
support. I greatly appreciate it.
Thanks, TJ.
You bet.
Change that protocol, you know, I'm willing to. I'll go on there.
Portugal.
I know.
So our spring trip, Zoe just informed me that our current spring trip is Portugal. So Portugal from here to.
Is that through the Spanish? Will that be through the Spanish?
Yes.
Okay.
Yeah, Merkel, which
Yeah.
Merkel speaks several languages.
You call it a German?
I did. All right. Thank you so much.
All right, have a great night, everyone.